Ayariga on the substantive matter for our conversation, which has got to do with DRC and its attending issues which they are facing currently in the region. Please.
Good morning to you.
Right.
Good morning. Sure.
I hope we have a very intellectual
Thank you.
discourse and not one that will just be very political. If you look at DRC Congo, and not only DRC Congo, but most of the sub-Saharan African countries and African countries, I mean, the core needs, food, shelter, water, rules, what have you. So you'd realize that the citizens themselves now march up onto the streets to try as much as possible to register their displeasure. If you listen to the UN's director's speech when he spoke about the fact that the state needed to try as much as possible to stabilize the situation by trying to provide for their needs and to also instill some level of trust to the people. Not only DRC Congo. Remember what just happened around Burkina Faso a few months or weeks ago, and happening in various African countries. So what it tells us is that leaders in Africa or states or governments owe it a duty to the people. They have a contract, a social contract with the good people of their countries. Try as much as possible to provide for them not just food, shelter, but also good governance. Because most of the time we feel that just providing roads, water is enough for the people to understand that they are being governed by people. But good governance is also key, and respect of persons and their human rights. So it's an issue that we have to look at it holistically. Not just DRC Congo, but Africa as a continent really needs to look at it. Otherwise, we'll continue to have some of these pockets of issues across African countries. And Ghana is no exception to it. So the fact that we are relatively enjoying some peace for a very long time doesn't mean that any government, be it NDC or NPP, should take the people's will or the people's power for granted. So we should try as much as possible to watch that. Aside from that, I don't want to go into the details of what really the history of all the things that happen in DRC Congo, how they have gotten to where they are, even from the days of Kabila and what have you. So I think the African states, African governments owe it a duty to their people to at least matter to them some level of good governance. So I'll just leave it there.
All right. Doc, let me come to you.
Thank you for the opportunity. As has been rightly stated earlier, the situation in Congo is no different from any other African country, because there has been a lot of problems regarding leadership of sub-regional, countries, and the people are getting tired of what they are supposedly denied of in terms of social amenities, good, better lifestyle, good governance, and in the wake of certain, situations like what we have at the moment in Congo, the people who are supposedly the perpetrators haven't even been brought to book. And so the citizenry feels that they are not getting their money's worth in terms of anything they have invested in the state, in terms of taxes and all the things that have been mobilized by the government. So it brings to fore the need to agitate, and it translates into emergence of some strifes. And at this time, as has been stated, the military interventions should not be used to extreme. If there is anything that is needed to curtail matters, it should be more of a dialogue than a force to tone them down, because the angry mobs would never succumb to certain things. So it gets to a point where some of the people even feel, what does it matter if I even lose my life? Because if I'm not living for anything, then when I die, it's worth it at the time, and he becomes heroic in effect. So we would have to look at a consensus building. We have to approach it in a way of dialoguing and understanding what really the needs are and coming to terms to, forestalling some of these skirmishes and misunderstandings and wranglings, and not force them to, box them into some subservient status.
Right.
If we're able to understand these things and we have good leadership, we cooperate with other, emerging economies where they have gotten, like Rwanda, like some other places where they have, chalked successes in their political administration, then it can help bring some calm in all these things that is going on.
Absolutely.
The main thing is that if we see it happening next door, then we should rethink that there could be a spillover, which would also motivate some people around us, because we are not too far from these countries, and way of life, the political atmosphere is not too different from theirs. So that if we are not able to learn from what they are going through and correct the errors in our jurisdiction, then it will get to a point where, had I known, if we had taken, yes, we have taken steps to calm the situation here, then we wouldn't also get to such situation.
Absolutely.
So these are things we have to look at holistically as a continent, and our leadership, when they have set meetings and come back, they should be able to bring certain things that would calm nerves, would assure the citizenry, would give them hope, so that we can also work towards achieving successes of other, like-minded nations.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you, Dr. Francis Che, for that submission. I just wanted to bring to the attention of all, and also perhaps even to help with the conversation, understand what a state, if we say a state is, or a country is in a state of siege, what it means. Now, so the Collins Dictionary defines it as a situation in which a government or other authority puts restrictions on the movement of people into or out of a country, town, or building. Under the state of siege, the police could arrest suspects without charges or warrants. So this is what the people of Eastern Congo are having to deal with on a daily. It's instructive to note that it doesn't augur well for the development of the people of the Congo. All right, let me remind viewers that we're streaming live on our Facebook page and also on YouTube, so you can share with us what your thoughts are via those platforms. I'm also on Twitter. Yesterday, I think I forgot to read the message on Twitter. So if you are following me on Twitter at Kwame Owusudan, so you can leave your messages. If you're also following me on Facebook at Kwame Owusudan, so I have two accounts. I have a personal account and I have a public account. So you can also share with me what your thoughts are via either of those platforms, and I will read them out. Pan-African Television is also on Facebook. Leave your comments underneath the live stream and I will read the messages for you here on the show. Let's come back home and discuss some other very pertinent issues here that we're having to grapple with ourselves. Now, the number one issue which has gained some level of notoriety in terms of how we have dealt with is the introduction of E-levy by the finance minister, or if you will, by this administration. I'm sure you know what the E-levy is all about. The education of same has gone down to everybody, and so I don't need to redefine or reiterate or rehash what the E-levy is and what it's seeking to do. However, we've seen mixed reactions from the minority in parliament, and we've also seen the reactions from persons within this administration. One is for, one is against. Now, a motion of disapproval was passed and a subsequent motion of approval was passed. So disapplying the motion of disapproval and instituting, or if you will, introducing a motion which led to the acceptance of this particular budget. What it means is that everything therein has been approved and has been accepted. Yesterday, there was a contrary argument advanced by Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, MP for North Tongue constituency, intimating without any iota of hesitation that the majority should not deceive themselves into thinking that they have disapproved, or if you will, they have set aside the motion which was passed in disapproving the budget, and therefore they themselves know that there's a motion which is still pending, which has not been voted on us at the moment. So this is where we are now, but it raises a number of fundamental issues, and I'm coming to you, Osman, because it appears that the position within your own administration is not etched in stone. It appears so, because it appears that in one breath you have the leader of the minority caucus in parliament making some statement to the effect that there's a possibility of acceptance if it is reduced from 1.75 to 1%. That statement was unequivocal, and it was made, and with all the force and passion behind it, it was well communicated by the leader of the minority caucus. Now, flowing from that, there have been, some rebuttals. One from the minority chief whip, Muntaka, who has also opined with no equivocation that the minority in parliament is opposed to the E-levy and Japan and a few others which they felt will not inure to the benefit of the average Ghanaian. But the question still remains whether or not there is a certain division in your party relative to the acceptance or otherwise of the E-levy, and if there is, or if there isn't, what is the way forward for your party and for the good people of Ghana? Bear in mind that this is not just a fight that is the sole preserve of the minority in parliament. A lot of Ghanaians have raised critical concerns about the viability and sustainability of this E-levy, particularly when it has economic implications, really, for almost all of us, because we are all involved in one way or the other in electronic transactions. And so what is the position, the truest, clearest, unbridled position of the NDC?
Kody, first and foremost, before I even move into the good job the minority MPs are doing, I just want to use this opportunity to wish a happy birthday to the only good thing that happened to the Dankwa Buzia tradition, that is the person of John Ajokum Kufuor. I want to wish him a happy birthday and for his good governance. And even though he wasn't perfect, but he's been a fine gentleman. So I just want to wish him a happy birthday, considering his age. I think he should be 80-something plus. Now, back to the Home Affairs and what happens in Parliament. I would also want to commend the MPs in the minority for the good job done so far, for listening to the good people of the country and the suffering of the ordinary Ghanaian, also listening to their constituents and the good fight they have put up in the past week so far as this budget is concerned, and the fact that it only goes a long way to drain the already drained pockets of the ordinary Ghanaian. Now, Kody, the position of the minority is simple as it stands now. As it stands now, the minority is against the E-levy. Simplicity. I mean, people decided to go to market because of comments or, a presentation our minority leader had said something, and people decided to twist it or decided to understand it out of the context of which he was coming from. And due to the fact that they had attended various meetings, so they were privy to some sort of information that everyone in the general public wasn't privy to. Even after the reading of the budget, there were some level of negotiations. Finance minister trying to meet people, trying to meet the minority group, trying to meet leadership, trying to see how they could meet each other, halfway or somewhere in the middle ground. So there's some level of negotiations. And you and I know that if you are going in for negotiations, you don't go in with an extreme position or extreme stance that there's no way you're going to budge. So, the minority leader was only communicating in the worst case scenario, even if there was some level of negotiations. The only position the NDC was willing to take with the E-levy was for us to accept a 1% increment. In fact, we started from 0.5, between 0.5 to 1%. And not only was it with the E-levy, there were other demands we were making. And the agreement or the position of the minority was that if everything is not agreed upon, then nothing has been agreed upon. You understand? If everything in the negotiation, so if we come to the negotiation with 10 things to agree on, if we even agree on 9, and the 10th one has not been agreed on by both parties, then obviously there's no negotiation. You understand? So it was based on this information which the minority leader was privy to that he made it look like it's not as if we just were against everything the finance minister was bringing, but we're also ready to make some concessions based on the suffering of the ordinary Ghanaian. So to the extent that in all of our negotiations, nothing or its entirety was not agreed on, then nothing has been agreed on. That's why we come back to the position that we are against E-levy, we are against everything so far as it's concerned. Now, people talk about the fact that it seems as if we've not taken a definite position, but the position is very definite. When it comes to E-levy, we gave various things and various reasons why we're against certain components of the budget. We spoke about the fact of the Ejapa deal, which we were highly against. We were highly against the fact that our minerals were being collateralized for the next 15 years for people to go and take some money outside this country and bring it to the country. We were definitely against it. We're definitely against the fact that we didn't believe that the purchase of the Aka energy deal was something that was prudent, and we saw it as pure thievery. That was our position in the minority, and we felt that we said it loud and clear that the E-levy is something that was going to further impoverish the already poor Ghanaian. And for that matter, let's look into it. Let's look for other avenues of revenue, or other avenues of raising revenue, other than just taxing the ordinary Ghanaian who goes out to their normal transaction of 100 cedis, 50 cedis. That is the core. That is the main cry of the minority. You understand? So, I mean, with the position of today, the budget has been approved. Tomorrow, the budget has not been approved. This is an illegality. I think those are the jargon the parliamentarians can decide to juggle when they're in the House. But to the ordinary Ghanaian who is on the street, his concern is about the fact that the E-levy is something that is really going to drain the ordinary Ghanaian. And concern about the fact that if Ejapa is passed, then of course, in the next 15 years, we are all going to be in serious trouble. The economy is almost, in fact, the economy is broken. I wanted to say it's almost, but the economy is broken. Otherwise, we won't be introducing most of these things. And we are at the verge of going to the IMF, if you listen to Kojo Oponkroma. And they do not want to go to the IMF. But how did we get here? It's a result of reckless spending. As a result of government's insensitivity, so far as spending is concerned. And other expenditure that is unwarranted. And you and I know, if you even look at the budget, look at the allocation alone to the presidency, 3 billion. For what? You pack the presidency with so many people, duplicity of positions, duplicity of offices, taking salaries, taking allowances. The president is traveling. He goes with a whole entourage, 50, 100. I remember the COP conference he went to. I heard he went to about 300 people. I mean, you don't need to go for a climate change conference with about 300 people. What the president should be attending is about his personal attitudinal change. We need to change. And that is what we expected of the government. Rather than letting the ordinary Ghanaian suffer, the government should be able to cut some of its expenses. Then we can judge and try to at least sympathize with the government. But if you want to further tax us, whilst we see you living lavishly, not only you, the president, his ministers, his MPs, everyone is living lavishly. Presidential staffers are enjoying, their properties are doubling within 2-3 years. And you expect that the ordinary Ghanaian should be happy about the fact that you want to introduce E-levy? No. And not to even end there. It's surprising and instructive to note that even before you've introduced E-levy, you've already calculated it. You've already calculated how much the company is, which is going to take this money, is going to earn. So in a year, the company that will be doing the collection of the E-levy is supposed to take 242 million Ghana cedis. I mean, what is this? You and I know that when it comes to revenue, and I expected the finance minister to know more, better. You know, when it comes to revenue collection, you have a target. But certain things may happen, unforeseen circumstances may happen, and you will not even hit that target. Especially when this is the first time you're introducing it. Don't forget that people may get angry, people may get frustrated, and reduce the rate at which they have mobile money transactions. So you're expecting revenue. Don't expect to have that kind of revenue. So how do you even start calculating? You are more interested in the company that will do the revenue collection, how much they are going to earn. And today you realize that there's a brawl between the communication minister and the finance minister as to which company is about to do that collection to earn the 241 million Ghana cedis. So you realize that it's not just about the revenue collection and about the salvaging of the economy, but there is something in there everybody is interested in. So you see, these are some of the things we see, and we say that these are not people who are interested in salvaging the ordinary Ghanaian.
Let's characterize and particularize this situation by placing the subject matter into proper perspective. Now, on the one hand, there is the percentage.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there is the vehicle which is going to be used for the collection.
Exactly.
Which one is the NDC opposed to?
Which one is?
Is the NDC opposed to?
First and foremost, we are opposed to the collection. So once you oppose the collection, that means that the vehicle that is even going to take it is moot.
Okay.
You understand?
So my fundamental question, and I think I've been asking this question on a number of occasions on different platforms, that are we opposed to the collection of taxes? Don't we think that it is imperative that at some point all and sundry must be brought within the remit of tax collection, as opposed to having to go to IMF, going to procure loans, which comes with conditionalities, which loans may not necessarily even be used for the purpose for which was contracted. So the question then becomes, are we not rather interested in what steps we can take in order to bring about proper and better development for the people of our nation at this material moment, where we are now in the world? Must we resign ourselves to always disagreeing with any policy introduction, if we find a little avenue of convenience when it will benefit our political conversations, then we take that avenue, as opposed to just looking at the substance and the merit therein before arriving at any conclusion? I want us to deal with the 1.75. Whether or not you don't find it rather expedient that we have conversations about maybe a reduction, to let's say 1%, and then everybody will be captured, within that bracket, so that we can make money and deal with our own internal affairs, as opposed to always going for loans and grants and issuing bonds, etc.
Keodi, whether we like it or not,
yes,
taxes will be taken.
Absolutely.
Even since the days of the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, I mean, kings have been taking taxes to run the affairs of their states. But in most cases, you realize that it gets to a point where the citizens themselves resist certain taxes. They resist the taxes because it is further placing so much burden on the citizens. So in as much as governments need taxes, or government needs money to run the system, they should be able to gauge the momentum of the people. They should be able to gauge the feelings of the people, and also gauge the pockets of the people before you introduce certain taxes. Because if I do not have, how do I even give to you, the government? If I have not eaten, how do I give to the government? That is what government ought to do. You remember sometime back there was this levy on towing truck or something, the tow truck levy. The citizens fought it. They fought it vehemently because, one, the timing, the whole initiative, the whole idea was proper. But the timing wasn't right, because at the time people felt that they were suffering so much that they didn't need extra taxes on some of these things. You understand? So you ought to gauge the feelings of the people, gauge their pockets, and know whether it is prudent and expedient for you to introduce any form of tax. Now, with this whole E-levy, 1.75, and you will realize that the minority leader tried to even hint that in the worst case scenario, we're ready for a 1%. But it doesn't look like Oforiatta is interested in reducing. It's only interested in 1.7%. So we thought that even though we had hinted of a 1%, the best thing you could have done was to even meet us halfway. Then by so doing, Ghanaians realize that, okay, I mean, you are also a listening government trying to reduce it because the people are crying, and we also are sympathizing with the government because nobody wants the country to come to a standstill. We will also sympathize with ourselves, sympathize with you, and try and meet you halfway at a certain percentage. But if you are starting at 1.75%, that is what we are saying. Simplicity, we cannot agree to that. We cannot. It is not in our fabric to even agree to you to say that we want to introduce or start by saying 1.75%. The finance minister hasn't hinted of any form of reduction. Where he is standing, his posture, his position has remained resolute. So far as he has decided to remain resolute, that he's not reducing the 1.75%, they will also remain resolute. They will not even accept it. That is our position.
So that's one
breath. So there are two.
That's one leg of the argument. The second argument has got to do with, and I can appreciate your argument, the arguments you're advancing. So in a worst case scenario, if a reduction was to happen and brought to, let's say, 1%, there is that likelihood, whether latent or manifest, that the NDC may accept, for the purposes of nation building and things like that. Because I was actually going to ask you the question whether or not it will serve anybody's interest if we rather looked to the IMF as opposed to looking inward to generate revenues for the purposes of nation building. I was actually going to ask you because Kojo Ponkroma, as you rightly hinted the possibility of going back to IMF if we failed to see reason, with them in respect of the E-levy collection. So I just wanted to, but I think you've clarified that there's that possibility. Now, the second leg, and I know you're itching, you want to come in, but I'll let you come in. Let me just, the second leg of the argument has got to do with the vehicle that will be used for the collection. I think it's one of the things which came to my attention a little belated. And I'm saying a little belated because I only got a wind of it yesterday, that there's actually going to be a vehicle which is going to be used for the purposes of collection of taxes. And to be honest with you, when I heard that we're going to use a vehicle, I was livid to the marrow, because I'm thinking in my mind that you are crying that you don't have money to develop the country and to advance the cause of development, right? And so, for the in respect of that, or in view of that, your idea of generating revenue is to tax the people through electronic transactions. Now, the people are already crying that they cannot pay. You are forcing them to pay. The people would eventually, let's say, give in and say, okay, no problem, you take the money. You have hinted that you're going to generate or rake in per annum about 9.6 billion Ghana cedis, right? That's, I think that's
estimated,
the estimated
projections.
the estimated revenues that we may generate. That is if all of us continue to transact. We generate 9.6 billion. Now, out of this 9.6 billion, all of those monies will not go into government coffers. We are saying that we're going to pay a vehicle which was used for the purposes of collection. And so we are not going to get the full amount of this 9.6 billion annually. That for me is a problem. And it was just yesterday that I took notice of this particular vehicle which is going to be used for the purposes of collection. My question is very basic. Why do we need another company, or why do we need a company to collect revenues when, one, the mobile telecommunication companies,
have the capacity,
whose platform we are using, already have the capacity of generating their revenue, because you are able to see their numbers. That's why you want to tax us. So how do they do it? It's just a platform. You do the interface. So you can find a way of connecting the interface of Bank of Ghana to that of the mobile network or mobile service operators. And so every transaction which is made automatically will be pushed to the wallet of government. I have worked with Airtel Money before, so I know how it operates. You create a platform, payments are made. When payments are made, automatically you can move monies, to the wallet which we created for the Bank of Ghana, which can be supervised by these telecommunication, service providers. So the question is, why the need to go in for a third party for the purpose of collection and subsequently paying them percentages or a specific percentage out of the 9.6 billion that we may be generating from these collections? Why the need?
Kody, to quote the Justice of the High Court, now I think Appeals Court, this is just a pure matter of create, loot, and share. That was what this judge said in one of the sittings. This is a case of government trying to collect revenue from people. The telecommunication companies have the platform, and they have the platform to also regulate their numbers. NCA, Ministry of Communication, already regulate the numbers of these communication companies. GRA in itself also regulates the numbers from all these communication companies. So it's just a simple matter. If GRA doesn't even have the technical know-how, they don't have the infrastructure, just paying one company 241 million Ghana cedis annually every year, half of this could have established the whole system in GRA for them to go ahead and collect the taxes. Then we would at least expand GRA You understand? So what are we doing with GRA? What are we doing with Ghana Revenue Authority that they cannot take these taxes? And we now need a private company to take these monies for us. And now go account to, are they now going to account to GRA, or they're accounting to Ministry of Finance, or they're accounting to BOG? You understand? They have decided to complicate this whole matter that one finds it very difficult to even understand what the government is all about. Because the Ministry of Finance, which is pushing this e-levy, has GRA under the Ministry of Finance, of which GRA is mandated to take any form of levies or taxes, even though some private companies sometimes go ahead to do some of this collection on behalf of GRA, like we have in the harbor, we have in the ports, airports, and what have you. We have private companies that do the collection of most of these monies on behalf of government. You understand? But this entirely has to do with some technical issues over there. So for that matter, we have some services doing that, or some companies offering these services. But this is the case where GRA has already been taking taxes from these telecommunication companies. Aside from their corporate taxes they take, those who take their payees, those who take the talk tax, they take all manner of taxes from the telecommunication companies. So this is not as if it's a new area for GRA to operate or to venture into. So I find it very difficult to understand or to believe that the GRA or Ministry of Finance feels that the GRA is unable to take these taxes, and for that matter, they have decided to establish or to go in for a private company. Now, there's a brawl between whether we are going for Express Pay or we are going for Kelny GVG. I don't even think we should have this kind of conversation. Yes. SA also is pushing for Kelny GVG. Finance Minister is saying it should go to Express Pay. I don't even think we should get to this kind of conversation, because the conversation simplicity should be that GRA should be equipped enough to do most of these collections.
Interesting. Wow. I mean, I learn every day. I'm continuing to, as matters continue to unravel, we learn on a daily. It's very important that we apprise ourselves with matters of nation building. It's very, very important. We are all involved in this. And when the bus drivers decided to embark on their sit-down strike, all and sundry were affected. It wasn't only peculiar to the opposition political parties. All of us felt the heat. And so now I think that should it should send the clearest of signals to all of us that nation building should not be done on partisan lines. Nation building should be done on nationalistic lines. And so whatever affects the goose will affect the gander. Now, let me come to you, Dr. Francis Chi. Yes. You've listened to our brother Osman Ayariga relative to his submission dealing with two legs of the substantive matter tabled for our conversation. Right. One leg has got to do with whether or not it is important at this material moment to reduce the percentage from 1.75 to 1%. And if that is done, will the minority accept same? I think he answered it both in the affirmative and in the opposite. That, well, it depends on a number of factors. And those factors obviously must be brought to the front burner before such conversations can be had within the periphery of the minority, and whether subsequent approval or rejection by same. The second issue is whether or not there is the need for government to contract a private company for the purposes of collecting the taxes for and on behalf of government. Why can we not use companies which are already in the business of collecting those taxes for the purposes of doing same for government? Why do we need to set up a completely, in fact, not necessarily set up, but why should we employ the services of a completely new agent to do the collection for and on behalf of government? And if that is done, what are the ramifications, what are the implications, what are the adverse effects or otherwise of these activities on the people of Ghana? Please, okay. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. As you said, we can only develop our nation through taxes. So at one point in time, there's the need for us to be taxed. Currently, we realize that direct tax is only by it's less than 20% of the populace that are paying direct taxes. And so I mean, the tax rake-in, it's only about 20% forms direct taxes for the rake-in of the, revenue. So if you're able to,
the people that we are taxing directly,
yes,
from source,
from source,
right.
So invariably, it means most of them are coming through indirect taxes. The introduction of the E-levy is important because at this time, it is one vehicle through which almost everybody in the country can contribute something to the national kitty. The rate of tax is another subject matter, which I'll deal with before I conclude. As we speak, we know that almost everybody is a user of a telephone. Almost every adult, very rarely, is a user of a telephone, and we use it for so many things. There is a need for a proper education for us to understand and realize that the money taken through the E-levy is not going to be something to contest too much. One, let's look at times when we used to do this, when we used to mail stuff through ordinary post. We were working with a scribbling pad. You have to write, you have to find an envelope, you have to buy a stamp. Then you go to the post office to mail it. All these as chain had a degree of taxes on it, plus its own inconveniences. Now, we are living in the comfort of our homes through a medium. We're able to send emails, we do Twitter, YouTube, all those things. So these are some of the vehicles through which communication have been easy. One of the means is we have also cut down on banking and the time wasted in queues in banks. So this is another medium through which we are doing all these things. So through that medium, if there is a need to mobilize a certain revenue to help in the development of the nation, I think it's in the right direction. Then we come to whether or not the contest in the parliament is relevant at this time. My brother said earlier on that we don't have to hold entrenched positions when it comes to negotiations. That it's either my way or no way. It can happen that way. So there's always the need to dialogue. That is for which he mentioned something and I was like, what are they holding on to? They say they have A, B, C, D items for us to dialogue. You accept A to Z, so we come to an understanding, or you take out M and nothing will be considered. Then you're still holding on to an entrenched position because you're not helping anything. I'd also come to the point where I'd say that if somebody has a proposal and another person has an objection or an alteration to your proposal, the initiator of the proposal and the person who wants to amend the proposal, these two people will be coming from different ends, even though they might be seeing the same vision. What will make you think that if I am the originator of the idea and I have to crucify my idea and accept the person who is proposing an alterations idea, then it doesn't sit well with any of them. So both of them must come to a consensus.
Right.
So it comes to the point where the minority says either accept all we are putting on the table or we decline everything and none is accepted. Or on one breath, let's look at a rate of reduction for which it can be accepted by us, and then we come to a consensus. This is where we find ourselves. And I believe that if they're able to dialogue properly, there will be a consensus. Once they loosen up from their extreme entrenched positions, then we can have a consensus to help Ghana. Because as we fight now on whether we want to have it or not, the sufferer is the citizenry. Because if these monies are not collected, every day around the clock, is money lost to the state, because once there is a proposal to go to Parliament for approval, and then it has been planned or factored into developmental project already. So we know that we are expecting so much to help develop. If we don't conclude on it early enough, then it's money lost over time. So that these wranglings are not helping the citizenry, because the nation needs to be developed by the revenue we are generating.
Okay.
Then
stay on that point. Very, very good point that you've advanced. But the point is that, and I've heard people make this argument a lot more, that listen, I mean, I'm not sure we'd have any problem with paying taxes if we see what our taxes are being used for. Now, we know how much this government has borrowed, all right? But whether or not all the monies that we've borrowed have been put to proper use is a question of fact. And clearly, it appears to many that we've not seen any real development. All we've seen or we've listened to are just mere rhetorics and political sloganeerism, as opposed to creating the proper channels or toolkits that can help people find either jobs to do or to create jobs for themselves, and also to help develop this nation. So we've not really seen true development in every sense of the word. All we've been introduced to sloganeerism, one district this, one factory this, one this, one that, and along the line we find a way of abandoning those slogans, without any consequences, really. So, which is why I think it's one of the reasons why people are also opposed to the collection of taxes at this material moment, because it doesn't serve anybody's interest at best. The president, to many, is living a luxurious lifestyle at the expense of the average Ghanaian taxpayer. I mean, if a president flies a private jet and pays £15,000 an hour and flies from here to, let's say, United States of America, spends about 8 hours, you can do the mathematics yourself. If the president sleeps in 4 seasons and pays $8,000 per night, you can do the calculation yourself, and the number of days it's going to spend, you can do the calculation yourself. So clearly, the people are saying that paying taxes is not a problem, but whether our taxes will be put to proper use for the benefit of all is what we are concerned about. And also the fact that we are already suffocating, but you want to probably just suffocate us and put us in intensive care unit, because we cannot even breathe any longer. You are charging us 1.75. And then again, the question has also been asked about whether government itself is focused on its own policies, particularly when the vice president, who is the head of the economic management team, was heard to have vociferously, without any hesitation or without any duress, made an open statement to the effect that as for taxing mobile money, it was a no-go area for government, because of the people who find themselves within a bracket of transactions, of using the platform for transactions. So clearly, people are wondering, why would government even dream about this particular E-levy?
You see, it is important for us to understand certain things. I like the avenue of the things you mentioned regarding the presidency and the president's lifestyle and the president's expenditure and all those things. I would want to say that generally, would you expect, not necessarily for answering it or anything of it, so would you expect to see your whole president travel to any of the countries and living in any of the slums? You wouldn't be happy with it, first. So we are becoming a little more critical on certain things which we don't even have values, because they are speculative values. They are saying we are renting a private jet at certain cost and all those things. It hasn't been justified. However,
it's not been denied as well. I mean,
the point is,
there's not been any denial,
because focus on certain things for the development of the nation is more paramount to some of these denials. So if it comes to the point where people are becoming critical about certain things which they who are talking about it even know the truth and are peddling lies about certain things which really doesn't have to take the whole nation to come and address. Then we can move on with other things. Because at any point in time, we would expect that the image of Ghana at any point in time is the presidency, no matter what. That is why some countries, when you go there, patriotism, it behooves everybody to be patriotic, but they look up to the presidency and they are called them. You think, let me cite an instance where the US, for instance, right? Do you think no matter how much they might not like a president in the US, they would open his doors for assassination? It's an indictment on the nation. That is why you have to preserve some of those things. So when people are becoming unnecessarily critical, I want to say that let's see more developmental stuff going on. And you asked about taxes not being seen.
What do we use for development?
Yes.
What is used for development?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Money.
Yes.
They're saying that taxes are not being seen as translating into development or something. We are experiencing several road constructions. And I travel a lot. And I have been seeing several roads that have been constructed over the period. Some mileages have been added to the old ones. Some have been improved and all those things. If we start to think that if you start to think that Ghana is Accra, and for that matter, if I'm not seeing something in Accra, it means it's not happening, then we are getting it wrong. If you travel along the Accra-Kumasi road, you realize that if you want to use the Eastern Regional corridor, from Aburi all through Koforidua and all those places, you realize that there are a lot of development going on along the route. Most people...
Private development.
Again?
Private development.
No, road constructions I'm talking about. Not private development. Not people constructing houses or anything. But road constructions, bridges, and all those things going on. And I see them. I apply the routes almost every time. And so some people, for instance, some people live in a particular part of Ghana, of Accra. Early morning, they drive 20 minutes to their office, come back, or 20 minutes to the market area, they come back, and they're not seeing anything on that road, and they think nothing is happening. But a lot of things are happening. Do you understand? So if we say we don't see anything, there are a lot of school constructions going on. Expansion projects on second cycle institutions.
Right.
Some debt fund developing tertiary institutions and all those things. They are all part of our taxes. And developments are going on. If you drive through UPSA now, you realize there's kind of structures going on the campus. It is visible. But because somebody does not ply that route and it has not been commissioned as completed, the person might think it's not happening. So some of these things are going on. And so if we are talking about the tax timing, the rate, and its effect on Ghana, we can dialogue on that, but we shouldn't discount the fact that monies coming into the government kitty are used for developmental projects.
Now, monies coming into the government kitty, and a lot of people, beyond the fact that road tolls were becoming a nuisance, okay, to many, is also the fact that there were some other parties, which parties were involved in the collection of the road tolls on behalf of government, and was given a certain infinitesimal percentage to government, you know. And so a lot of people were upset because, I mean, how do we pay so much and then the private company would take a lot of the money and then give government, you know, peanut and things like that. So now, many people were happy that we scrapped that, right? Others are also saying that we should bring it back because, you know, that's also another avenue of making money. So these are conversations we can have later. But I'm asking this question as a precursor, or I'm making this statement as a precursor to the question I'm about to ask you. That do you think it's important that we use third-party companies for the purposes of tax collection when people are crying, even about the percentage? And the conclusion would be that it appears government is not reneging. Government has decided not to reduce the 1.75% because there's a component of that that goes to the private sector, the private company that will do the collection on behalf of government. You know, so the Ghanaian man has to suffer so that we can pay a private person. When in fact government can by itself, with all the machinery at its disposal, do the collection by itself.
Thank you very much. The vehicle of collection, I would say that I would understand it is already existent in the sense that of all the submissions I've followed, it had been the telcos and GRA.
Okay.
Until the last few hours when I gathered, there was something going on, a dialogue of or discussion going on of who to be the medium of collection, which I would say that it would not be necessary to get a third party who is a private person to collect on behalf of government, because GRA is already there, the telcos are there already, the percentage hits the telcos. So immediately these transactions have gone on. All you need is to track everything and then get your percentage, and you don't need a third party private company to do anything for any extra payment. Do you understand? So some of these things, like you said, earlier on you said you got some information belated and stuff like that. I have followed through to the point where I have only gathered that it is GRA and the telcos who are supposed to collect these revenues, and to have information as to a tussle between which company should be the mediator and which other company should be the medium or the third party to collect on all these things going on. I'm not privy to it. So I would say that Ghana needs to focus on certain important things, like the toll thing you said.
Right.
Citing certain, as we are championing electronic stuff going on, all these things, I would say I would want to believe that if there's anything to do with the tolls,
right,
it should be electronically collected and not have people, because when you go to several other countries, like in Germany, like in London, like in the US, once you get to the toll, there are certain times, some of them you have the electronic circuit you keep in your car, you load your money on it. Once you drive past it, it takes it out automatically.
Absolutely, yes.
There's another side of the toll area where you use
the card
coins, you drop in the coins, and then the amount of charging will come, and then it will open for you to go. At one point, you also use your card, you swipe it, and then you go.
Absolutely.
The only person you meet there is the person to help you punch whatever it is if you are new to the place. So you don't even have any money contact with the person whatsoever.
Right.
So all the revenues go to the pool which has been established, and end of day it can be accounted for properly.
Right.
So some of these things were things we'll have to be thinking about, and for which reason the toll booth they have closed or opened for free movement is worthwhile, because it was breeding unnecessary traffic, was creating unnecessary tension around the place, and it had created a market which was not needed, because those places are not meant for such businesses. If you want to do anything, marketing, sale, go to the marketplace and let the traffic flow. Right. And so it was worthwhile at the time.
Yeah, you want to make a quick...
Yeah, I want to make a quick remark on some of the things he said. Well, I find it very sad and very insensitive coming from a government spokesperson talking about the fact that we don't expect the president to travel and live in slums and what have you. No one is expecting the president to travel out and live in a slum or any of that sort. No one is interested in jeopardizing on the security of the president. But all of these can be met with at least some sort of moderate expenses. It will interest you to know, if you look at just government spending in 2019, not even government, so just the presidency the presidency spent in 2019, and I'll give you a list of some of the things. Printed machinery and stationery alone, 1.6 million Ghana cedis. Office facilities and accessories, 6 million Ghana cedis. Telecommunication, 1.8 million Ghana cedis. Maintenance and repair of vehicles, 5.9 million Ghana cedis. Foreign travel costs and expenses, 62 million Ghana cedis. You go on. Hotel accommodation, mean that the travel external travel expenses excluded from hotel accommodation alone for these travels was 5.8 million Ghana cedis. Refreshment, 1.9 million Ghana cedis. Official national celebrations, so the president goes on a festival and donates money, 520 Ghana cedis. Operational enhancement,
520 Ghana cedis.
Yes. 520 Ghana cedis, yes. Operational enhancement. 520? Yes, 520 Ghana cedis. Official national salary. This is the 2019 expenses. Operational enhancement expenses, 68 million Ghana cedis. Rentals of office and residential accommodation, 900,000 Ghana cedis. Fuel and lubricants, 4.899 million Ghana cedis. Kwame, these are expenses that we say that the president is engaging in so much spending. And for that matter, see, let us not let it sound as though we are against taxes. In this country, we have been paying taxes since the days of Gordon Gorgesbeck. But a minority now, listening to the hue and cry of the people, is saying that they will not approve the E-levy just to fund Nana Addo's lifestyle of frivolity, frugality, and opulence. This is our simple cry. We will not support this budget so far as it's concerned to fund Nana Addo's lifestyle. Simple. So let's not mix the two as if we are just against national development.
All right. Thank you. Osman, point well made. You want to...
No, this is good, but the only caveat I was not happy with is end of submission. It says will not approve for it to finance the lavish or the opulent lifestyle of Nana Akufo-Addo, for which I feel it's below the belt, because if anything is funding the presidency, it is not funding Nana Addo's lifestyle. The presidency is not Nana Addo. Nana Addo is the president, but the presidency or the government is not Nana Addo. He happens to be the president of today, for which reason he is the commander-in-chief, is in charge of affairs and doing all those things. But it is not going to serve him bread and butter, like it's been, mentioned. So that's where I was. When
was Doomsday mentioned John Mohammed's name?
No, I'm saying.
Well, let's proceed.
John Mohammed's name is not
Nana Addo's lifestyle.
No, it's not Nana Addo's lifestyle.
Let's proceed. Let's proceed. Yeah. Interesting, varied opinions here on the show regarding the E-levy. I think that this conversation will never, there's no end in sight, particularly when there is still some disagreements amongst, the political divides. And so we will see where it leads us and how it ends. But we will not be just, we'll be active participants in this process of unraveling what the true matters are. But it's critical for me, particularly because now I'm learning, and I'm going to follow that a lot more, that there are two separate companies which are bidding for the collection, Express Pay and then Kelny GVG. I don't know what Esla has got to do with this Kelny GVG. Every time she likes this Kelny GVG, I don't know what's her business with the Kelny GVG. Anyway, it only raises suspicions, but we will just leave it hanging like that. We'll investigate further. Toll's woes deepen as ECG allegedly disconnects power to Premier Refinery. That's on the front page of the Insight newspaper. Doc, let me start with you on this particular issue. Toll has always been inundated with debt. I don't know when they are going to get out of that situation, but it appears that it's worsening.
Yes, with the Toll issue, I think I had to follow it slightly when I got that there was some news about a disconnection and an eventual reconnection, for which the arrangement was that there was so much death and there was an agreement or an arrangement for repayment in certain proportions over a period of time. I think the information I gathered was that they had defaulted the November pay, and for which reason the ECG went in. But after, you know, a few hours, some agreement or some consensus was met, and then they had to reconnect them to get, you know, power for, you know, start operations. The point, whether there was some payment or was only an arrangement for another date for payment is what I wasn't privy to. But with TOR and its operations, you know, it is operating. It's operating at a higher cost of electrical and, you know, power, at a higher cost of power to generate all these things. And these are all the things that come into play when it comes to our fuel prices and export price and all those things. It has gotten to the point where after yesterday's skirmishes, there was some agreement of a slight reduction, and for which reason, you know, business has started again and all these things. If we factor all these things, then we realize that at a certain point in time, we should not be too hard on what prices the fuels are going for and the taxes on the fuel for which they have to use a portion to manage their expenditure and all these things. These are situations where if the TOR management is putting the acts together, they should be able to establish a certain line of expenditure which would take it up for continuous production for them to get to a break-even point or start raking in profit with them. Because if there is a proper management strategy to fund expenditure and subsequently gear into break-even point and even making profits on their productions, then we wouldn't be experiencing some of these things. Or we could also say that probably some management have had a laxity at approaching catering for bills, for which reason some of these high bills have been outstanding for ECG, because if they are virtually two government agencies, even though they have gone into private, they are backed by government to the point that one government agency is stopping the other one from production, for which reason it will create shortages in the system eventually, because if TOR does not operate with the power and refine the fuel and get some into the system, it means that at a very short interval of between the time and now, it means that period of production is going to create a lag.
Right.
So if we are supposed to turn X amount of fuel out for supplies, it means that period is lacking. So there's going to be a ripple effect, which is going to create some artificial shortages, which is going to push the fuel prices to another level which will be unbearable.
Okay.
So these are the things both agencies must be having discussions to ensure that certain things do not happen the way it happened. Because if you had an earlier arrangement and you overlook it to make things get this bad, then it's worrying for the economy.
All right.
But everything is virtually a petroleum product eventually. In Ghana, it's like either
it's connected to everything.
That's right.
Yep.
You've been transporting to work, transporting to the farm, bringing foodstuff from the rural areas and everything. And even now, it's even more on a high consumption because of the delivery services now. But all the motorbikes around are also using fuels to do all these things. So there's a higher demand for fuel, for which reason we cannot see TOR go through what it went through.
But why is TOR indebted to ECG? Why? You see, you have advised all these nice arguments, but it's not. The question is why? Why are we here? Yes.
TOR is indebted to everybody. Not only EC. TOR is indebted. TOR is indebted to banks. TOR is indebted to BDCs. TOR is indebted to OMCs. TOR is indebted to almost every serious entity in this country. And you see, in 2009, when Professor Mills of blessed memory took over the affairs of this country, he tried as much as possible to see how we could service the debt of TOR. You remember? We tried to see how we could balance the books of TOR and also save the financial institutions that had pumped in so much money into TOR, so that at the end of the day, we don't collapse TOR and collapse the financial institutions too. So we try to manage the two, so that at the end of the day, TOR will be able to pay back some of its debts. Of course, for TOR to have accumulated so much debt is just a simple matter of mismanagement. Mismanagement from the people that were managing it before we came to power in 2009. So there was this trajectory to try as much as possible to reduce the debt, of which Professor Mills started. So I think we introduced there was a levy we even introduced, TOR recovery levy, to try as much as possible to reduce. Yes. So we have all these levies in place.
Let me just make you guys laugh a little. So when Gall announced that they had reduced,
we'll get there.
Who said that? A friend of mine went and posted on Facebook that Gall recovery levy in the offing.
Absolutely. Oh yes. Yes. You see,
there's nothing like a free lunch.
You see, Kwame, not to drop the TOR matter, but do you know now with the 15 pesos reduction from Gall is going to lose 9 million Ghana cedis every month.
That's a lot.
Yes, from their overruns. And this is money that they would have used to do the overruns of the company or to do certain expenses of the company. But because government is just interested in a populist position, they have decided to twist the arm of Gall, which is, of course, a government OMC, to reduce it by 15 pesos. And for that reason, every month, Gall is losing 9 million Ghana cedis. And it will interest you to know, the best thing government could have done was to just take out most of the taxes, and automatically all OMCs would have reduced their prices. You don't go and force the institution of which you control. And if you are not careful, of course, we will soon have the Gall recovery levy, like has just happened to TOR. If we don't allow them to run it like a serious company to make profits and be able to take care of their overruns, at the end of the day, government will have to go elsewhere and look for money to salvage some of these institutions. So they should watch it. Where Gall is going, they should watch it. Where Gall is going.
The truth is that there was a tax element which were the two tax elements which were reduced.
Yeah, but
the point is that it is, we are in a deregulation situation.
So see, the question is not so much about whether there was a tax element that was reduced. The question is so much about why was the tax incorporated into the operations. Which what it means is that they were not raking in revenue, or they were not meeting their target, which is why the taxes were introduced in the first place. So if you're reducing those taxes, it means that you're taking them back.
So where we were.
Absolutely.
It does not necessarily mean that they were not.
So if they were
not raking,
you see,
even with
the fuel prices, if we do not even touch the taxes, and we are able to manage the rate at which the cedi is being depreciated, we are okay. We are very, very, very okay. But today, the cedi against the dollar is at 6.5. So of course, we'll go through some of this stuff. You understand? Because the product is bought in dollar.
With some of these figures coming up, and the dollar rate against the cedi and all those things, it is universal. It's a global phenomenon.
So the point is that has always been your getaway plan. We all know it's global.
You know how much the Chinese yuan is to the dollar now, and about 2 months ago when it was.
We know.
That's right. So the point is that
it's not that we don't know.
For their good. The element of taxes. The Chinese yen, they in fact they have a conscious effort. They go on a conscious effort to devalue their currency, because they do more exports than imports. So the more you devalue your currency, then you attract more people to come into your country to buy. But we import more than we export. No. So if our currency devalues at that rate, then we are in trouble. You understand?
It is not because they want to rake in alone. but because the other factors in the economy are also being affected. Because when we talk about importing and not exporting, for which is the major factor of the depreciation or otherwise of the currency, then we are getting certain things wrong. We are looking at this from 2020 down to today, it has been the COVID economic management syndrome, which is affecting everybody. Okay. That is why it's critical for us to look at it.
There's another topic. I disagree with this government when they try to use the COVID as an excuse.
How so?
I'll explain to you. Just 1 minute.
Let me just go for this quick commercial. When I come back, there's one particular topic which I feel will encapsulate all of these matters that we've raised here on the show, which is reposing confidence in Akufo-Addo at the 2020 polls. 1 year on, has it been a failure? Has it been a success story? This is a Good Morning Africa story in focus. Let me go for this quick commercial break. On our return, we will deal with all the relevant issues here on the show. Stay with us. Don't move muscle.
Hello, information. Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, added.
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I did call. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasacco fast floor.
Trawanko, please, those people are expensive. Are they those big houses in town? I beg going to cash in a guy.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. No, the estimate is real. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasacco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster and stronger building.
Oh, madam. It is done.
Wow.
Trasacco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster and affordable.
This is a Trasacco construction product.
Right, welcome back from that quick commercial break. Osman, I think I should start with you on this one. Reposing confidence in Akufo-Addo at the 2020 polls. 1 year on, a failure or a success story. What do you have to say? 10 minutes for you.
My brother, I don't think I alone can even say what the Ghanaian people feel. The Ghanaian people feel it every day. They feel it every morning. When they wake up in the morning and they're on their way to work, they get to the filling station and they realize that the price that was displayed yesterday has increased by a certain percentage the next morning. From work, when they are able to even buy fuel and they get to work from their way from work, they come back from work, they get to the same filling station and they realize that the price has increased again. This is the kind of 1 year we have seen of Akufo-Addo. Businessmen go to the port, try to pay for their car's duty. Today they are given a certain figure. By next week, if they try to arrange the money to come back and pay for their car's duty, they come back and the figure has gone up by a certain percentage. This is the kind of economy we are seeing with Akufo-Addo. Food prices have gone up astronomically. But then again, the Minister for Agri will come and tell us that a bunch of plantain is 4 cedis or 3 Ghana cedis, which I'm yet to see. People go to the hospitals and healthcare is a problem. Yet again, the president comes out with very beautiful slogans. Even before the construction of the hospital, he's paying his friend who is a consultant to the Agenda 111 almost 24 million Ghana cedis, even though a single pickaxe has even hit the ground. We are yet to see the Agenda 111 come to fruition. Many more. People wake up in the morning, they don't know what to eat, and they hear their president has gone to high presidential or luxurious jets at 14,000 euros per hour just to fly out of the country to go and have some conversations, peace talks, which does not inure to the benefit of the people. And for the first time in many years, we will see trotro drivers, trotro maids playing football at the lorry station to register their high level of displeasure. For the past 1 year, spare parts have gone up. everything is up, nothing is coming down, the city is depreciating, school fees has gone up, lifestyle has gone up, electricity bills have gone up, people cannot pay their rent. Baumia told us in our faces that he doesn't understand why electricity bills should be higher than our rent. But today, what we pay for electricity bill within a month can pay for your rent for almost 3 or 4 months. Believe you, where? I don't know. Everywhere. Maybe you don't. Do you buy lights?
Do I buy lights? Is that a
I don't buy yourself. Maybe you don't regulate the lights you buy. I buy. It's expensive.
Wait.
It's expensive.
Ask him what kind of equipment he uses in the house.
No,
If there are appliances he uses in the house.
This man is a rich man, even in opposition.
So
we can pardon him.
No, it's not about being rich or not. It's about the choice of.
That is what I'm saying. If you are poor, you use the equipment.
No, so it's
the gadgets that he uses.
rich. And
this one drives 2020.
Please. If you are rich and you don't buy the right appliance.
Let me make it sound to you. This one drives a 2020.
People are suffering.
2021 V8.
People are suffering. People are crying.
Are you one of them?
Yeah, I'm suffering. I'm crying. I'm not suffering in this country. I am.
You cry your V8, eh?
I cry. I mean, you go out there to buy food and you are confused. You go out there to pay school fees of yourself, your wards, your relatives, your nephews, your nieces, and it's unbearable. People are just living from hand to mouth. This is the economy Nana Akufo-Addo has introduced us to. People are very, very, very disappointed. Not only in the NDC. If Doc will be very honest with us, even in the MPP, they are disappointed. They are sad.
No, I'm not disappointed.
They are disappointed in the kind of governance the government is meting out to the good people of this country. The only bad thing, the only crime, the only offense Ghanaians committed was to have voted for Akufo-Addo. That is their only offense of which they are suffering for. You understand? People, and in fact, people are saying that for them to suffer more, they want to extend the Akufo-Addo's term to another 8 years so that people will suffer more for their mistakes. But I mean, those are some of the jokes people try to let us understand that there's so much suffering. And Doc, if you be very honest with us, in fact, maybe there's a disconnect between you and the reality. You are enjoying. I can understand. You're you are insulated from the reality. No, you have to bear with us. No, Doc. You see, you have to bear with us. People are suffering. People are suffering.
I'm getting more grassroots money than what you
you're enjoying. No, you're enjoying. You're in government.
No.
You don't buy the fuel we buy. I mean, you don't go through the hassle we all go through. You have the power. You have the means. You have the resources.
I wish you know my routine.
If people like us,
just like
is it a rich man?
If people like us, ordinary Ghanaians are suffering.
It's relative.
People like us, ordinary Ghanaians are suffering. What we expect is that the government will at least listen to us.
But
let's listen to the hue and cry.
Let's particularize the conversation. What, in your estimation, has worked and what in your estimation hasn't worked? Or you're saying that the first 1 year of Akufo-Addo's reassumption into office has been a total disaster? Is that what you're saying?
In my estimation, to be very honest and be candid with this government, the only thing that has worked in this country, the only thing that has worked for the past 12 months in this country is the fact that the president has been able to travel successfully to everywhere he wants without one. And the second thing is that he has been able to launch so many agendas, agenda this, agenda that, with flamboyant occasion. That is the only thing we have done for the past 1 year. What is it we've done? Aside from the normal everyday business, at least every ministry is supposed to go ahead, pay salaries, all of that. What else has the president done aside from go about launching very beautiful programs which they have done nothing about, and the president's successful travels? Those are the only two things the president has done in our estimation. Aside from that, zilch, zero, nothing. I mean, he can tell us what the president has done so far.
Okay, tell us what the president has done so far.
Thank you very much. You know, my brother had mentioned a few things in regards to ports and duties. Yes, the port levies and duties. To be honest with you, every honest businessman would tell you that since 2017, the duty charges and at the port has not changed. Anything that an importer will complain about is the freight, because the freight in 2019, end of 2019, a 40-footer container coming from China was about $2,000 to $3,000. As of now, it's about between 11 and 13,000. What has it got to do with the government? Is the freight forwarders, is the freight charges by the shipping line. It has nothing to do with ports. So when people are saying we are importing things and it's expensive, the truth is that ports charges has not changed. The freight have gone up. It is not government.
See, let me provide this information. You know where we are coming from. I've dealt in the ports. You understand?
And I'm importing too.
I'm coming. And you know that when they are calculating your duty, they calculate it in dollar. You know, dog, you know, when they're calculating your duty, they calculate it in dollar.
Okay.
So if today the dollar is 6.1 and they calculate the duty for you, by next week, if you go back, you're not going to pay the 6.1.
So the rate has changed. The rate has not changed.
The duty I'm supposed to pay.
No.
Hasn't it changed?
No.
If last to import a Corolla and they told your duty is 11,000, and next week, are you trying to tell me that it has changed? I mean, government needs to put in a policy to change the duty, but the duty has changed because of bad governance and the depreciation of the city.
It's not bad. If the depreciation of the city has changed, it
doesn't change at all. No, I said the figure changes because of the city dollar equivalent.
Beautiful. So the rate has not changed.
Yeah, but let him
My point is the rate has not changed. It is the same rate charged at the port. If the dollar, the city dollar
rate has not changed, what do you mean?
I'm saying that
percentage.
If you are charging let's say $1 on clearing a cup, this cup, from 2019 to today, it is the same $3. It hasn't changed. The only variation is that the city dollar ratio has changed. So if you are taking it in cities, yes, it will change. But the charges by the port has not changed.
But that's the
so
significant.
the point is that
but it goes. No, it means you are paying more. It means you are paying more.
You will pay.
It means you are paying more in terms of cities. If you are changing cities to dollars, for instance, and in 2016 you changed city to dollar, let's say 5 Ghana cedis, right? And then now you are the same $3. You are changing, let's say 10 Ghana cedis to get the same $3.
Yes.
That's a significant increase. That's times 2.
The value, it's not up to 5 times 2 though.
No, I'm saying
it was 5.8. As of 2019, and now it's 6.3.
Now it's 6.3.
Yes, it was 5.8.
So I would need when in 2016 I needed 5.8
yes.
to get $1.
Yes.
Now I would need 6.3. So if you multiply the 6.4,
the 0.2,
hold on, 6.4.
Yes.
If you multiply the 6.4, right, by $3, that should give you how much? Mathematics is terrible. So let's do the mathematics.
Yes.
I like that.
I understand that.
6.3, 6.3.
Times
6.4 times $3.
Okay.
You get 19.2.
Good.
Right?
Okay.
And then the same
5.8
times 3. You get what? 17. So that's 2 Ghana cedis. That's significant.
It's significant by the rate of the exchange rate, but the port value hasn't changed.
No,
and we don't have much control over that.
Who controls
government?
The exchange rate and how the house city is supposed to be.
It is the government. It is the government, but I'm saying that look at the significant change from 3,000 to 13,000 of the freight, which they are not talking about, and they are talking about 2 cities, which is less than 1% of whatever rate we change now. From 3,000 to 13,000. What is the rate of change? It's 4 times and more, 400% and more. And we are looking at 2 cities as opposed to 19 cities, which is less than 5%, which is less than 3%.
Okay.
You understand?
But I'm saying that. But you know, it's more than that. When
let me read this message. I'll come back to you guys.
Yes.
This one is from my very good friend Captain Biko. He used to be a panelist on the show. I don't know if he's back in Ghana. I think we'll need him back on the show. Kwame, the major problem I have identified with TOR is mismanagement. There are serious supply chain inefficiencies which must be addressed. The politicization of it will not solve the issue. There is a need to bring everyone on board to redeem our strategic assets such as TOR. Secondly, it must be appreciated that the COVID crisis has impacted all aspects of the world's economy, the rippling of which we are experiencing now. The closure of borders, airports and harbors has had a significant impact on movement of goods and services. It will take time for these to be resolved. Ghanaians must be patient and bear with the government. With regards to rising fuel prices, it's sad that we continue to politicize it. The world is seriously moving towards the direction of renewable energy. This has impacted the operations of oil and gas companies. Many of these big companies are abandoning oil exploration for renewable sources. Definitely the effect will be increased prices. Facts are sacred. Regards, Captain Biko, energy expert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Biko, for your message this morning.
So you realize that the anticipated shortage has an effect on the rising prices of fuel. However, with the spare parts, for instance, when he was talking about spare parts dealers, when there was the benchmark thing and they had promised that because it was new they couldn't change it. When the time had elapsed and they needed to revise it, they were still complaining. So you realize that
how can 300 people go on a conference?
it's on. It's a speculative. It's a speculative. No.
And the issue about the hotels and things like that. Look, there are other hotels that are of international quality standards
of the presidential
standard. Which the president, you don't have to necessarily go and sleep, because Four Seasons. Do you know Four Seasons is for like the celebrities and things like that? They sleep in.
How special is a celebrity?
Because they make their own money. They make their own money, so they determine how they spend it. The president doesn't make money.
Yes,
but the president is living off.
Yeah,
the taxes of the people.
But the security,
the president should be minded.
The security of the place of lodging is the most test.
Why the president is sleeping?
This guy.
The president is
when Clinton came to Ghana, you realize he didn't sleep in Ghana.
Where did he sleep?
He didn't sleep in Ghana because all the Ghanaian.
Where did he sleep?
I'll tell you.
No, you see,
all the Ghanaian hotels of that class were owned by Arabians, so he did not sleep in Ghana.
Oh, my brother.
And I'm privy to it because of my job. Listen, because of my job, I'm privy to it.
I get it. It means that there's a reason for that. Who wants to kill President Kufuor?
Who tells you? Then we shouldn't give him the security. Don't make a mistake.
Look at where your Flagstaff house is. You think that if people wanted to kill the president?
The location, but you know where White House is located.
Where is it located?
White House, DC. Do you know where it is located?
So compare your security to that.
White House, the location of White House.
Nobody wants to kill the president. I mean,
you can't be flat about that.
Oh, I'm telling you.
as we are here, personally, I've had encounters with several people who have been complaining of jobs. And you know what baffles me most?
Tell me.
Artisan, 7:30 in the morning to come and do some job for you. And he tells you, and can run a catcher media and come back. Now we are there, see me see my The third person will say there's no job. Meanwhile, I was going to give you 80 Ghana cedis for the day's job. You understand? Yeah. And he said you're washing your, which was going to cost you soap and water. You could have left that thing, washed in the night, by the morning it's dry. Because when I even lived overseas, listen, that's right. When I complaining of no job, no, when I live in the States, there was times I had to come from work at 2 a.m. But I still had to do laundry, get it set, so that when I go to sleep and wake up by the morning, the thing is dry for me to kick the roof.
Thank you very much.
Because I was focused on getting certain things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
I had the series with Dr. Francis Che, who's a member of the MPP's communications team. I like him already. I think that he should be coming quite often. Osman Ayaraga is a known face and a regular on the show. Thank you guys for your time this morning.
Thank you too.
And thank you for
That's we projected.
Thank you guys. Thank you for watching today's edition of Good Morning Africa. My name is Kwame Usunam. So big thank you to the producers. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Hello, information.
Madam,
Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much,
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I didn't call you. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasacco fast floor.
Trawanko, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg going to
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave